So now to kick us off properly, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you all to Cami. Cami is the co-organiser and co-brains behind this conference. To tell us more about the story behind this conference and to give us our opening keynote this morning, please join me in welcoming Cami Bandari.
Hi. Morena, good morning and namaste. I'm Cami Bandari. I'm one of the lead organizers for this conference, and we've been waiting for almost 18 months to make this event possible. So I'm very, very excited and also very nervous this morning. So I wanted to start the conference by talking about the 4 pillars that are quintessential for organizing a conference. I actually didn't realize until I decided to organize a conference how important the sponsors are for a conference. As you guys all know, the ticket price for this conference is $110, early bird, discounted price, and $150, which is still very, very low. And the reason that is because of all of our generous sponsors. If we did not have sponsors, those ticket prices would probably be $400 or $500. So a massive, massive shout out to all of our sponsors today. Thank you. So Qualit and Applitools that are platinum sponsors today. Assurity are silver sponsors. Fawcett Bar, Fergus, and Xero are our silver sponsors for the year. Please make sure you visit their booths outside. They have really exciting stuff and swag for you guys, so please make sure you go visit them and say thank you if you can. The second pillar is the organizing committee and the volunteers. It is about the generosity of the sponsors, but it is also up to the courage of the volunteers and the organizing crew who've decided to take time out of their private time and help us. And like I said, it's been 18 months in the making. Our crew was here till 6 p.m. last night, making sure we have all of this sorted out. A big thank you to speakers. They are the third pillar. You won't be here if we didn't have any speakers. So for everyone who raised their hand to be a speaker today, thank you very much. And the attendees, last but not the least, if you guys did not buy a ticket, we would not have a conference. So thank you so much for everyone who decided to buy a ticket. And thank you for also for badgering your employers to buy a ticket for you. Thank you so much. So I want to talk about why we are here today, why we've decided to organize New Zealand Testing Conference. So we are a very passionate group of individuals who want to take personal responsibility for the change. And why? Because we care about gender equality and gender equity. Now, I thought I understood what gender equality and gender equity means, but not quite. So I'm just going to read it out for you guys so that we are all on the same page. So equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities, whereas equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. We obviously do not live in an equal world. We all know that. And while majority of the organizations, they complain about the pipeline problem in tech. What do I mean by pipeline problem in tech? We do not have enough gender diverse people in technology because not enough women or gender diverse people were studying STEM subjects back in the 90s or in 1980s. So we wanted to take personal responsibility for setting things right. So one of our core ideas for organizing this conference this year was to have at least 50% female speakers. And I'm very proud to say that we do have 50% female speakers this year. And next year, we're going to try harder, and we're going to go after a more gender diverse group, not just only for speakers, but also our volunteers and our organizers. And this is why I wanted to bring this up. Invest in homegrown and local communities. Now, while it's quite nice to hear speakers from United States of America or from UK, but I personally want to hear stories from Xero, from TradeMe, from a Wellington-based startup, from an Auckland-based startup, from a company that is down in Christchurch, because those stories are the ones that hit home hard and we care about. So this year, we've decided to give all of our speaker slots to 100% New Zealand-based speakers. Now, when we did call for paper, the two most interesting things that stood out to us were that 95% of people who applied for call for paper were all male, We only had one female apply, and that was Jasmine Mayfield, who is our speaker today. And her talk did really, her CFP did really, really stand out. And at least 60% of the speakers were international speakers. So we intentionally decided that no, we don't want to do what everyone else does. This is our first year, our inaugural year. We want to do things right, so we want to give all of our slots to our local speakers. So I'm very proud, again, to say it out loud that we do have 100% New Zealand-based crew today as our speakers. Invest in people over products. This is something Fabio, who is the co-organizer and the other lead organizer for this conference, was really, really passionate about. Now, you've been to conferences where the conferences, as they scale up, they kind of start selling their products to people. The focus shifts from investing in people to actually maybe creating courses or products or what have you not, and start pushing that towards you. Fabio has a very clear vision about this. He does not ever want us to be selling products to you, because that's what everyone else does, and that's what companies are for, organizations are for. As a conference, we want to invest in you. We want you to have an amazing day here and learn and get the best money out of your time. We also care about the environment. So this is our first year. We do care about a carbon footprint, so we've decided to be low waste this year. Like Erin said, it was also outlined in the email that we sent to you guys. I don't think we are plastic free this year, but we are trying really hard. That is also going to be one of our things next year, to be plastic free if we can. And the most important, why you guys are here. We want to focus on current trends and technology in the quality space. We were talking about Agile 5 years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, but now everyone does Agile, everyone does DevOps. We want to talk about the next big problem in tech that you guys are struggling with. And that's what my talk is about today. So, Quality Engineering Manifesto, what is this about? So like I said, the conversation has shifted. We are all on cloud now. We are all doing DevOps. We are all doing weekly releases, fortnightly releases. And the biggest problem in tech right now, or in the engineering space, is scaling up and delivering your product to your customers at a higher velocity. And the biggest blocker is quality. Like the quality, if you do not have enough good quality, you cannot do it. So majority of the organizations, they scale up, and they do deliver high quality, but they still deliver very slow. They're stuck on monthly release cycles, or the best they can do is a fortnightly release cycle. If they do try to increase speed, they're spending way more resources on getting the release out the door rather than on product development. So for example, if you do fortnightly releases, you are doing DevOps and all of that stuff, you are on a fortnightly release cadence, but you spend 2 to 3 days on doing manual regression, or it takes 4 days or a fortnight for you to get your release ready and deployed out to production. That's not building quality, that's not building a product at speed and scale. And a lot of organizations are still stuck in this model. So this is why we're talking about this today. So before I go into giving a manifesto to you, let's talk about the problem statement. What is speed? Speed is moving fast, deploying code into production faster. What is scale? Scale is more number of development times, or more number of people in your development time, so that you can develop those features faster and get it to your customers out in the production. So the problem statement that I think, summarizing everything that I said before, is how do all your development times deliver changes into production at a higher velocity with utmost quality? How do we do this? So the upcoming slides, I'm going to give you out 6 rules that I think can be used to solve this problem. I couldn't come up with I was looking for an image last night, like this was a last minute change to my slides. I couldn't come up with the best image, I guess. I couldn't find it. These guys are trying to build fighter planes. But when we talk about building quality at speed and scale, this is what we expect. Like, it's a nice assembly line. Everyone knows what they're doing with utmost quality. But it actually looks more like this. It is more of an organized chaos. Everyone knows what they're doing, but we're just like rushing through everything. We're still able to get the releases out the door, like I said, but it is more of an organized chaos than the previous slide. Okay, so moving on to the rule number 1. This is more of a mind shift, and this is for everyone, not just for testers. This is for the entire organization. Quality is never an afterthought, it's baked into the product. Let's talk about what happens when quality is not an afterthought. It's not baked into your product, okay? So when quality is not an afterthought, testing is always a tester's responsibility. The developer will just cut the code and they will throw it over to the testers. And now it's the tester's job to make sure they find all the bugs and get it moving. So like I said, testing waits till the developer have finished building a feature. We end up with massive testing cycles where a lot of defects and bugs are found because there was no quality feedback early on. So even though we are doing agile, we still take 2 weeks to finish a story, or our stories never finish within the same sprint, or the stories get carried over to the next sprint, thus messing up with the velocity of the team. And this is how we end up with waterfall with an agile model. We are agile, we do 2 weekly sprints, but we are doing stories that span throughout the entire cycle of the sprint, and then we are carrying them over. That's what waterfall with an agile looks like. And the another symptom of this kind of attitude is we find not only bugs, but also defects that lead to change in requirements or specifications quite late in the cycle, thus missing the project deadlines. So let's talk about what happens when quality is not an afterthought. And companies and organizations that take full responsibility for their product, they treat quality as a product. It's not just the product they care about. They stand by the quality of their product. We all care about it, and we stand by the quality of our products, whether we are a business analyst, we're a product owner, we're a developer, tester, designer, engineering manager, or a CTO or a CEO. It's everyone's business. Quality is our product. And we care about quality right from when the systems are designed. How do we test it? Because that's the point when you can identify defects. What is a defect versus bug? That is another quite interesting conversation, and I'm not sure if you all understand what is a defect versus bug. A bug is when the developer has developed the feature and it's not working as intended. Defect is when you've missed a requirement specification because you didn't think about it when you were designing the system. And this is why testers and quality experts need to be involved right early on into at a stage where you are actually designing the architecture of the system, because that's where you catch all the defects. Identifying defects when your product is ready to go out the door is quite late, and that's what leads to missed project deadlines. So hopefully that gives you an idea why quality should never be an afterthought. It should be baked into the product. Now, the upcoming rules will teach you how do you bake it into your product. Focus on the journey of a change on its way to production over getting the change into production. We are all so obsessed with just merging our code to master and getting that release build and deploying it to production so that we can get to our customers. And we get stuck in the same cycle for months and years in a row. We were doing fortnightly releases 2 years ago, and we are still doing fortnightly releases. We were doing 1 day of manual regression 2 years ago. We are still doing 1 day of manual regression now. And we are still doing DevOps. We are still on cloud, and we do all the cool things. But we never focus on how this change is moving from a developer's machine all the way to production. What all risks do we have, and what all quality gates do we need to build in our pipeline to mitigate these risks? What test data do we need to exercise this change through during testing so that we can simulate customer-like usage of the feature early on in our development cycle? What all test environments do we need to run this change through to simulate prod-like usage? And can we cut waste? If you never focus on the journey of a change, you will never identify how many test environments you do not need, what shitty test data you are still using. And there is so much waste. There is so much waste that can be cut. So I would encourage all of you guys, rather than obsessing and focusing on getting your change into production, focus on how a change moves through your development environment. What environments is it going through? What your pipeline looks like? How much time does every stage in your pipeline take? And why is, if it's too long, why? Can you bring it down? What can you do? Okay, the number 3 is fast, reliable, and sustainable automated tests rather than 100% test automation coverage. So We've all built those automated tests, like end-to-end automated tests. We've all heard stories. We've all been there. I've done it so many times in my career where I've written like 1,000 end-to-end tests. This was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I'm much more mature now. And these end-to-end tests take the entire night to run, right? And if you're a bit more smarter, they probably take 3 hours to run. But it's still too much. When we are talking about on-demand releases, weekly releases from mobile clients, spending 3 hours on an end-to-end testing cycle for every PR that is being trying to get to master is way too much time, right? And the other symptom that happens is we never have 100% stable builds on master brand within a period of a month because we have all these flaky tests. If you have too many end-to-end tests, you are bound to end up with the flaky test problem, right? Test proliferation and flaky test problem. And that leads to unstable master builds and no one being able to merge to master, thus not having a release build ready. Building 100% automated test coverage is an anti-pattern. Mark that down, please. A lot of people before me have said this. We should never focus on building 100% test automation coverage. It is an anti-pattern in the industry that we should all move away from. When you try to build 100% test automation coverage, this is the kind of attitude and behavior that sets you backward from getting your changes into production at a higher velocity. Because when you have these large, clunky end-to-end tests that keep on contributing to unstable master builds, no wonder we can have a release build ready and get our changes to our customers ASAP. And if you've ever had a red master build, I have been in this situation so many times in majority of organizations. If somehow you ended up with flaky tests or somehow someone was able to merge broken unit test or broken UI test to master, now no one else can merge until that master is fixed. So now you might have a team of like 25 developers, but everyone's just like sitting ducks. No one can do anything until that master is fixed. So this is why the idea of master always being green and master always being gold, and us being able to take a cut of master at any stage and get it into a release and production is very coveted within the entire industry, right? So how do you fix it? If you do have 100% test automation coverage, or if you do not want to build 100% automation coverage, what should you do? You should go read the testing pyramid. I'm pretty sure you all know what testing pyramid looks like, right? If you don't, you should. So align your automated test with the testing pyramid. Unit tests are so important, and as easy as it is to say that unit tests are developers' responsibility, I again think that's a wrong attitude. We should know what a unit test is. It's not necessary that the tester should be able to write a unit test, but you should know what unit tests are. Okay. And the unit test should do the maximum heavy lifting within your automated testing and within your pipelines. If you've seen the testing pyramid, the bottom part, that is unit test. That should be the maximum heavy lifting that should happen. And when we talk about, and as we start moving up the testing pyramid, we start talking about integration test and end-to-end test. So what I want you guys to really think about is, do you really need to write a large number of end-to-end tests? Can you write more integration tests or more behavior-driven tests that are smaller and focused on features rather than the entire span of your product? Because those end-to-end tests that focus on the entire behavior from start to the end, those are quite expensive to run. And those are the tests that are testing. We should have some of those tests, but having too many of those tests is what contributes to the flaky test problem, right? Also having reliable tests, short span, tests that are short span, just like I said, short integration test, having clean states for your test, focus on your test infrastructure. We spend so much time on writing the test for the feature, and we pretty much put aside what the setup and the teardown, and whether we are focusing on making sure every test is having a clean state. So I want you guys to focus on the test infrastructure or the test code that actually runs those tests, right? Solid mocks, everyone knows that it's pretty much pointless running your test against an actual environment. So focus, and when I say test infrastructure, focus on setting up solid mocks, because that's where you get faster feedback and you can write reliable tests. Test data. If you can have mock test data that can simulate how your customers are using your feature in production, that is really, really cool. Also focus on test frameworks. The test frameworks that you're using right now, are they fit for purpose? Do they have good documentation? And are they both developer and tester friendly? We have a talk today on Cypress, and if you've ever used Cypress, you know you never want to go back to using anything else. So we do have a talk on Cypress by Olga, so make sure you listen that story, why Cypress is one of the tools that is used for maximum web front-end test automation nowadays. And also, like when you're actually trying to get these test frameworks into your organization, when you're making that decision, which one should you use, also think about the upskilling curve. This is something that I've learned as I've gotten mature in my role and in the industry. Like during my early years, I was just focused on writing code and making a test run and getting a passing build. Now, as I've become a senior in my role, I actually care about the people around me and how long it takes to upskill them. So every new tool, every new technology you onboard into your organizations, there is always an upskilling curve. And if you are in a management role or in a leadership role, you always have to think about it, how much time it's going to take. So please, like when you onboard these, like when you decide whether you should use Cypress or Playwright, think about it. It's not about the pros and cons, not only finish at like what the technical capabilities are, but can people learn this tool? Can people upskill real quickly? And this is why Cypress is so cool, because the documentation is absolutely amazing. Like it's pretty much unparalleled, right? This is why everyone uses Cypress. Sustainability, right? So like I was talking, when you have large automated test suites that take 5 hours to run, or maybe the entire night, you need to hire an entire team of automation engineers to maintain that test automation, and that test automation is always a couple of sprints behind, or maybe a month or 2 months behind. That model is not sustainable. Like that's not what a sustainable test automation model looks like. A sustainable test automation is, their model is one that your development teams can take ownership and they can maintain it over a long period of time, and they can also scale it up. Okay, number 4 is continuous testing to enable continuous integration and continuous delivery into production. I personally feel we talk way too much about DevOps and we do not talk enough about continuous testing. People are still catching up. Even the testers are still catching up of like, what is continuous testing? So before we go into continuous testing, let's see what is continuous integration. So continuous integration, the way I understand continuous integration is that everyone who is writing the code within your development time is allowed to merge or can merge faster maybe within a day or two. Short stories that can be merged into your master branch real quickly. What is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is your master being stable pretty much all the time, and us being able to take a cut of your master and deploy it into production pretty much every day, right? Small incremental changes moving all the way from a developer's machine all the way into production. So what is continuous testing? Is it testing in DevOps? Because there are a lot of talks around testing in DevOps. And this is why I say we talk about testing in DevOps, but testing in DevOps is what continuous testing is. So continuous testing is test early and often. Test at every stage as your change moves from a developer's machine to the right of the pipeline and all the way to production. Now, when we talk about continuous testing, this is where automation comes in. And it is so interesting. Majority of the testing conferences, automation is always a big focus. What I want you guys to think about is like take that focus away from automation and start thinking about continuous testing, because you guys are all doing DevOps. Everyone is on a DevOps journey. But why does DevOps fail? We cannot continuously deliver because we cannot continuously integrate. Why? Because we do not have continuous testing. Like that's the biggest problem that startups have, small-scale organizations have, and big banks have. So that's like a widespread industry problem, and this is where continuous testing comes in and solves it for you, right? So, and also be very mindful of what shifts left and what shifts right. I know there is a massive focus on shifting things left, but what I've come to realize from my own experience of working across multiple organizations is not everything needs to shift left. There are certain things that will have to shift right, because we care about the feedback loop from the time it takes for a developer to merge their code into master, that feedback loop, that's the most important feedback loop within a DevOps culture, right? So we really, really care about it. Okay, so this is why we have to be very careful. If you're running your checks that you really do not need to run, when the developers are trying to merge to master, now you increase the feedback loop, and that's pretty much unnecessary, and that feedback loop is going to increase for pretty much the entire platform, and that lag just keeps on increasing. So unit test, integration test, visual regression for UX, accessibility, pretty much all the tests that are fast and reliable can shift left, but there are certain things that might need to shift right. So a good example of that would be your manual regression. Your manual regression, so when your story comes into development and you do manual testing, that is a different thing. That is left, right? Because that is exploratory testing. Manual regression is once you've got a release build and you're like, let's get this release build out in front of customers, and now is a really good time to pick up a device or launch a browser and see how this build looks like before our customers can see it. So that sort of testing should still shift right. Allow for faster feedback back to developers and allow them to integrate into the master branch so that all teams can integrate to master early and often and reduce the risk. So that's my spiel on continuous testing, but this is something I'm very, very passionate about. If you want to learn more about continuous testing, hit me up after the conference. I can pretty much do like an entire talk on continuous testing. Number 5 is measure yourself and shorten your feedback loops. I hope you all understand why measuring ourselves is important, and measuring is pretty much tracking what you're doing. So when I say measure yourself, I mean setting up metrics not only for your time, but also for your platform, and also for your pipelines that you are running. And why do we set up metrics, and how do we set up metrics, and what metrics should we set up, right? So when we start talking about metrics, it's definitely a maturity model. You've been doing DevOps for a while, you've been doing on-demand releases, you've been doing fortnightly releases, but things are still stagnant. So this is where metrics are really, really important. You want to measure how long it takes for you to get that change into production, and how can we get faster, right? And one of the basic things before you start setting up metrics is to be very clear about what your starting point is right now and where you want to end up, like what you want to look like. And again, this is always a moving goalpost because technology changes really fast, but it's really nice to define where we are right now and where we want to be 6 months down the line. Some of the metrics that you can set up are test coverage metrics, priority-based coverage. I have a really good example from my own experience of working at BNZ. So the last time I was at BNZ, we pretty much had the same problems that everyone else has. We had massive end-to-end test suites for our mobile applications. We had way too many number of end-to-end tests, too many flaky tests. Our master builds are never green. They fail every third or fourth run. It's really, really hard to merge to master. We cannot have a release build. We do fortnightly releases, but we still do 4 days of manual regression. So we are checking all the boxes that we should, but we still have 4 days of manual regression, right? And we are pretty much spending like 40 to 50% of our fortnightly resources within a sprint to get those releases out the door. So what we did at BNZ was we pushed all of our product owners to come up with a priority-based feature map. And what they did was they created a table of all the 35, 40 features there are in the BNZ mobile banking application, and they assigned it a priority. So something like payments and transfers, which is like the bread and butter for the bank, were priority 1. Something like maybe changing your contact details or changing your email address, that might go to priority 3. So we ended up with a big table, and everything was given a priority. And then we used that priority map to decide where is the maximum value, where is the maximum return of building test automation. So we decided to build 100% automation coverage for all priority 1 features. And then we settled for maybe 90% coverage or 95% coverage for priority 2 features. And as we move down the map to priority 5, maybe it's okay to have 20% coverage or 30% coverage. And that actually gave us a really good idea of how our applications are being used in production and making sure we are exercising the flows that are used by our customers every day, pretty much all the time on our development environments, and we are catching all of those bugs very early on, right? We also came up with test coverage metrics. Now, I know when people talk about test coverage, it's usually the traditional unit test coverage because it's easier to map, to see how many number of lines of your source code are being executed. But when we talk about like BDD tests, end-to-end tests, it's really hard to give the coverage. So this is like the priority-based table and map that actually helped us solve the coverage metrics problem at BNZ as well. We also really cared about publishing our flaky test. We had zero tolerance policy. And flaky tests, again, people can talk about flaky tests for days, right? And the debate has always been there. But I think a zero tolerance policy towards flaky tests is a really good policy that everyone can implement. You can probably never get rid of flaky tests. There will always be some sort of flaky test. A good way that our team at BNZ tried managing it was publishing. So even now, every time we have flaky tests in our pipeline, we have a notification coming from Jenkins on our team's channel, and the flaky test, we pretty much like name and shame those tests. And because we've adopted that policy of zero tolerance and kind of like naming and shaming, even our product owners are like onto it. So as soon as someone says that, hey, one of my features has a flaky test, the product owner will jump on it and they will create a ticket and they will get it assigned to their testers or to their developers. So that is why metrics help, right? Publishing failed test. The reason you should publish your failed test or you should measure your failed test is, was it shitty test code or was it an actual bug? Like, how many of your failed tests actually catch bugs? A lot of those times is just shitty test code. So this is why it's important to measure how many of your tests are failing over time and to categorize them, whether it was like bad test code or are we actually catching bugs. Pipeline metrics. So there was all like the test metrics that you can build, but pipeline metrics, you should be measuring your pipeline metrics as well. The overall build time, is it taking us 2 hours? Was it taking us 2 hours 2 years ago? And it's still, like, it's 2022, it is still taking us 2 hours to build. So we haven't improved, right? But if you never measure, you will never know how long it takes and how far you've come. Manual regression. I mean, I don't know how you can measure manual regression in an automated way, but maybe keeping a sheet on Confluence would be a good idea. It was taking two days 6 months ago, and we've done all of this massive digital transformation. We are doing DevOps. We are now on cloud, and like we can scale up, scale down, whatever. But it still takes 2 days of manual regression to get the release build out. Why? So you have to measure all these things so that you can start asking those questions. You know, why you haven't made any progress, and what are you doing wrong, and how can you do it right? Also, we care about shortening our feedback loops. So metrics help you to shorten your feedback loops, right? And like I said earlier, the biggest feedback loop, the most time-consuming feedback loop is from a developer's machine, merging the PR into master. Number 6, and the last one, is a working software in production over 100% bug-free software. I really care about this, and this is why I wanted to close the presentation with this one. Again, if you've ever been a developer or a tester, I think you understand why we cannot ever guarantee 100% bug-free software, but I think a lot of people who've probably haven't done development or testing roles don't quite understand, so I wanted to drive this point home. We can never guarantee 100% bug-free software. Actually enforcing or championing 100% bug-free software can lead to establishing a lot of anti-patterns. Some of them are having a waterfall with an agile model that we talked about before, a large manual regression cycle. Like if you are chasing perfection, like 100% bug-free software, of course you're going to be doing manual regression for like 2 weeks, and you say you're still agile, right? Large number of unnecessary automated tests that don't add any value. If you're chasing 100% bug-free software, you're like, let's do manual regression till cows come home. Let's build 100% automation coverage. Why? It's all pointless, right? Especially when we are talking about DevOps and we talk about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous testing, right? We want small incremental changes all the way to production every day. How can we do it if we are chasing 100% bug-free software? And what it actually does is chasing 100% bug-free software takes the focus and resources away from investing your efforts in what your customer use the most and ensuring that what they're using has the highest quality. Like, for example, like I said, if we were chasing 100% bug-free software for our mobile applications at Bank of New Zealand, I don't know if we could actually make sure that we do not have any bugs. So chasing 100% bug-free software across payments and transfers was a really good achievable goal for us. So why should we be focusing on working software in production? Because it ensures highest quality for our most widely used features in production. It encourages priority and risk-based testing. Okay, so what did we learn today? Quality is everyone's business because quality is a product in itself. We not only care about getting a change into production, but we also care about how we get a change into production. We never build 100% automation coverage. We test often and early, and we talk about continuous testing. We focus on building continuous testing. We measure our progress by setting up metrics, and we focus on shortening our feedback loops. And we can never guarantee a 100% bug-free software. So this is the wrap-up. And if you think you're quite far behind from what I'm talking, maybe your organization or your team is at a beginner level, then maybe number 1, number 3, and number 6 would be a good place for you to start. Start talking about these points, and because this will encourage that mind shift and that attitude shift. If you are at an intermediate stage where you are doing DevOps, you are on cloud, you're talking about all of these big things, but you are still stuck. Maybe number 2 and number 4 would be good for you. If you're a mature organization, you are doing all of these things, but if you're not doing metrics, then maybe setting up metrics and focusing on shortening your feedback loops would be a good place to be. If you do not fit within any of these 3 categories, if none of this applies to you, hit us up, because I want you to do the keynote next year. So with that, thank you. I can take any questions that you have now.